Welcome to the Women Tech Council Student Innovator Mentorship Podcast Series. I'm Sarah Jones.
And I'm Sydney Tedrow, and we are co-hosts of this show.
This show provides conversations with women mentors who came through STEM pathways and launched successful STEM careers. Hello, everyone. We have Dr. Helen Knaggs on the show today, and I'm really excited to be able to share her story with you. She has quite a fascinating journey. And so, Dr. Knaggs, can I call you Helen for the show?
Please do.
Okay,
yes, please do.
Great. Why don't you introduce yourself? You have a very extensive career pathway, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So I'm delighted to be here, and this is wonderful being able to talk about my journey. I am currently the Vice President for Research and Development for NUSKIN, and I'm focused on personal care products development. And I have degrees, biochemistry and pharmacology, that's my bachelor's degree, and I have a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry. And they're both from the University of Leeds, and after that I moved to the United States and took up a job with Unilever.
And was Unilever also a skin product?
Yes, so, I'm unusual, I think, because my journey started as a teenager. I would pick up Vogue and Cosmopolitan, and I just loved to read the beauty pages. And I was studying biology at school, and I have parents that are very keen on our health, and their family's health, and making sure we had the right diet and the right lifestyle. And so I was just fascinated by this whole world of biology that was really growing. And I started to think about our skin and reading the beauty pages, reading about all of these products that people put on their skin. Well, how is that affecting our biology? And how can it benefit skin health and prevent, bad things happening to your skin? And as a teenager, I just developed this passion to study that. So then I started to think about, okay, well, how can I pursue this as a career? I started by writing to some of the beauty editors that I was reading in the magazines. And I also started to look for college degrees, biochemistry, that would enable me to take my biological interest further. And then at the end of doing my bachelor's degree, I was in the university and looking at a notice board, and I saw a position that was available to do a PhD in the dermatology department at the hospital, and that was to look at acne. And it was just the right timing. I mean, it was perfect because I was finishing my bachelor's. I had this passion to work in skin. I wanted to go further in my academic work at the time, and there just was this opportunity and this position available for somebody to work in the dermatology department and really investigate the biochemistry of acne and the pathogenesis, how acne forms, and what we can do to help relieve that.
That is so fascinating. I have like a billion questions I want to ask you. But, first I want to just observe that I love how you started with something that you were passionate about first, and then figured out the pathway to be able to make a real impact from a research perspective and to really impact that whole area. A lot of times when we talk with, high school girls about, you should really consider STEM, you're such a great example of someone who's taken something that they're passionate about and then use STEM to improve that. And it's just such a strong message that I'd love for all of the girls to understand that it's really not about the degree itself. Mm-hmm. It's about finding an area that you love.
Yeah, and I think that, now I've been in this area for 30 years, when you're in school, you're very used to the rhythm of years. In one year, and then you move to the next year, and you move up a year, and you're learning new things, and you kind of get used to living year by year. But a career is a really long time, and there's a huge amount that you can accomplish in that. So I think that when you get out of school and into the workforce, you have to change your mindset, and you have to look at, events happen in like 5 years or 10 years. So there'll be times when you feel that you are kind of treading water in your career. You're not really going anywhere, but you're still learning during that time and you're still contributing. A career is not just about science, but it's about learning how to interact with people. It's about how developing skills where you can have an idea and you can champion that idea, but also get people to align behind that idea, because when you create that groundswell, that's really as you begin to move things forward, not just academic contributions, but a whole area and teams forward as well.
Did you find that you had to learn those skills, or did those skills naturally come to you?
I think they came to me because of the need that was created by the positions that I put myself in. So I moved into several different jobs that gave me different experiences and different opportunities, and that required different things of me, and figuring out how to do that enabled me to learn these things. And I've been fortunate that the workplace was supportive of that, because they have great courses. I attended courses in negotiation, and as a scientist, we're not taught in school how to negotiate. Right. We're taught how to, do something in a dish in a lab. Mm-hmm. We're not good at negotiation, and if you ask and put that wish out there, I want to learn how to be better at interacting with people. I want to be a better leader. I want to learn these negotiation skills. I found that the workplace can be very supportive of people that are keen and eager to progress. Because remember that, if you've got a STEM degree, you've got the great starting point. You've learned all those scientific things that you need. Now it's about learning the other things that you can use to help move yourself forward, interaction with people and aligning people behind where you want to go and making products happen, making science happen.
I think that's such a great point. I think, the STEM degrees are so valuable, but it's about putting it into practice mm-hmm. and making something actually happen with what you've learned. And there's a whole other set of skills that kind of go along with that.
And I think that as we go through our careers, we find times when we're not necessarily doing science. As your career grows, you need to have that scientific basis, but you might be looking more at how you develop products and what are the marketing aspects of those products, what are the financial aspects, what's going to be the return on the investment. So there's so much you can do with having a basic science degree and then moving into a scientific workplace. And we find that we need people that have got that basic scientific knowledge and that can make really solid decisions based on science, but do it with a mind to, the corporate environment and the things that make successful products.
That's right. I like to remind people that, a tech company or a STEM company isn't created just by product. Right, it's sales and marketing and support.
Exactly right.
It is all of that to
yes.
make a product actually make a difference in the world.
That's right, exactly. And I think, to me, I was passionate as a teenager about this particular area, but it's just been so amazing for me to see that create products that can make a difference in people's lives. And that resonates really well with me as a woman, because we care about society and we care about our families, and we want to put things out there that we want to use, that are safe to use, and that will be great for our families and friends to use as well.
That one of the questions that actually came to mind when you were first describing your career is, it sounds to me like the way that you approach kind of the biology of skincare isn't what I had normally thought, right? Which is just applying things on your skin. It feels like you take kind of a holistic approach mm-hmm. into the whole impact of what that does to the entire body. So tell me a little bit more about that. I'm just interested in how that impacts your work.
Well, it's fascinating to me, because I think that when you're a biologist, you can often be dismissive about the skin, because people tend to think of biology and more important organs like the heart or the lung or the brain. And there's a lot of interest in the science of those particular organs. But for me, I always wanted to, the skin is something that we can see. It's very tangible to me. I can visualize it. And it's something that we can address by putting things on our skin sort of topically, as well as internally taking vitamins and supplements that can help our skin and that can benefit our skin as well.
And, it's too bad this is a podcast because you've got amazing skin. And I'm like, she must use her own products, of course. Of course, I come from, trying to learn more about Korean skincare products, right? And yes. I've just got to ask you, snail mucus.
Oh, yes. Well,
is that a real benefit?
I mean, that's a great question, because we hear in the skincare world about these really odd ingredients. We've heard about salmon eggs, the eggs of right. fish, right? And that those have beneficial effects. Another one is human placenta, of all things. That has beneficial effects. I mean, that you get everything from ridiculous to gory. But if you come back to the components of snail mucus, there are ingredients in there, the active components, that are fascinating in terms of what they can do. And it's that fundamental sort of aspect of understanding, like, are there growth factors in there? Are there things like interleukins in there? What are the biological components that make up that horrible sounding thing that is really the thing that's providing the benefit for our skin? And then can we use that to create a product? What learning can we get out of that, and how can we use it in a different way to create a product that's beneficial and that's really elegant and wonderfully sounding as well to use?
Right. It's just so fascinating. I always think, who was the first person that wanted to try that? Just when those questions that make you go So I'd love to hear about what you said your career has been about 30 years so far. I mean, you're still young, so you still got a long ways to go, but what do you consider so far to be a career highlight? I'd love to hear about that for you.
When I was at university, as I've mentioned, I was just passionate about this world. And I used to buy the trade journals like Soap, Perfumery and Cosmetics. There's one called Happy, the real industry journals for this particular area. So not like the scientific journals like Journal of Investigative Dermatology, the more sort of industry-focused ones. And I would wait every month to get these and see what the new products were, what was coming out, what was happening in the marketing world in skincare. And in the last 5 to 10 years, it's been really rewarding to me because I've actually been featured in a lot of those journals now, and the products that I've worked on have also been featured in those journals. And for me, when I was a teenager or just starting in my career, I would never have imagined that I would be in those magazines. I mean, that to me wasn't even in sort of my radar, and yet it happened. And it happened, I think, not by great big discoveries, but it happened by solidly, continuing to work in this field year after year after year, because it's something that I'm very passionate about. And I would say that if as a young woman or a girl, and you're really passionate about this area of science, and it's something that interests you, that can be a rewarding and fulfilling career. And you just need to keep plugging away at it. There's going to be times and days when your experiment won't work, or you are met with a bunch of naysayers. But if you're really passionate about that area, you just keep plugging away, and over 20, 30 years, it pays off.
Well, and your passion seriously comes through. You mentioned a little bit about, the naysayers, or, the people that maybe some of the challenges. And if you reflect on your career, is there, a particular challenge that you were able to overcome that you thought, might have felt insurmountable at the time, but you just, were
Kept
able
plugging
to,
away, yeah.
I mean, love to hear about what lesson you learned over your career.
I think when I first started working, it was very similar to my work that I'd had in the university. It's very lab-based, very research-driven, and I saw some interesting areas of science that I felt could be applied to develop product technology. And I was very passionate about taking those scientific insights and using them to develop something that people could use. And there were, a lot of people sort of around who didn't see that vision, who didn't get that vision. And I just kept trying different people until we found someone that shared the vision and could see that scientific insight could be a great messaging play and the basis for a product. And that happened over a period of months, just trying to talk to various people and hear their feedback, whether we could adjust things, modifying what we had. And eventually, this scientific insight that we had did become a product. And it didn't happen overnight. It was 3 or 4 years. But I could go into a store and pick it up and say, wow, this is the science that I worked on and the idea that we had. And if I just dropped it and not continued to talk about it and champion that area of science, it wouldn't have got there. And, I think there are people that will always say no, but it's important to, find those that do believe that it's a good idea and, use them to help you create that groundswell to move ideas forward.
In that particular case, you were able to find those champions within your organization.
Not in directly that I was working with around, but within the organization at different geographical sites.
Okay. So you even had to extend past even
the walls that I was working in. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's a great lesson.
And it's easier these days because you have email. It's like we were writing letters back then. But now you have emails and you can share things a lot easier and you can get much more instant feedback of ideas. So I think that your reach, you can reach a lot more people, further away to find people that are supportive of the ideas and the science that you're pursuing.
So in your line of work, and just because I don't know much about it, because you've got such a deep chemistry and pharmacology understanding and the biochemistry, from conceiving an idea to product on the shelf, how long does that typically take?
That's a good question. We have done it really fast at NUSKIN, so we've done it in about 6 months.
Wow.
But typically it's about 18 months. Sometimes it can be 3 or 4 years. So it can be a whole range of things. And usually when it's a short development timeline, like a few months, what that means is that we've been working away in the lab with some prototype formulations so that we have things off the shelf that we can mobilize and pull from very quickly if there's a particular product need. So that brings up an important point that, we have scientists and you may find that you're working on something that doesn't have an immediate place in the marketplace, but all of those prototypes are really valuable because they allow us to move very quickly in a competitive environment. So even though you might have developed something that's sitting on the shelf at the moment, don't lose heart because they could be on a shelf in a matter of months as soon as that competitive need arises.
That's a great point. And I think to more generalize that, I found, in my life, I've had a lot of different career experiences, and people are like, are you really glad you switched? And, all of those experiences that you had in the past of in your past career, none of it goes to waste, right? All of that learning and all of that experience sort of blends in to contribute to the knowledge base that you have now.
And if you stay in that area of science, it's amazing how things come around, because it's like just this week we've been talking about some equipment and some sort of technical approaches that require some very intricate and advanced optical needs. And it's funny because, now 30 years, when I first started at Unilever, the first 5 years, we were actually looking at the exact same optical techniques. And now I'm coming back to those same optical techniques, 25, 30 years later, and to see the advances, because when we initially looked at them, they couldn't do what we wanted them to do. And now technology has moved so quickly that the power and the capabilities that they've developed there, it's amazing to think that now we can do what we were trying to do just 25 years ago. We can actually succeed at something that we wanted to do all that time. And it's here, it's tangible, it's now. We can make it happen.
That's so great. All those incremental innovations, right? That are just contributing to everyone in the world.
That's right.
That's actually accelerating everyone.
That's right.
In all areas. I'm going to switch gears just for a second here. We always want to be able to give helpful advice to the students or other people within industry that are listening to our show. And a lot of people have questions around integrating and balancing work and life and our personal lives. So illustrate what that's looked like for you, or, if it's, kind of transformed over time, or kind of what your personal philosophy is on that.
I always feel I've been very fortunate because I've had an interest in travel and learning about different people and different cultures. I didn't grow up in England. I grew up in the Middle East. And it was never a goal of mine to live in different countries, but I've been fortunate in that my career has enabled me to do that. So I've had job opportunities in very different parts of the world, in Asia, in America, and in the UK. So it's been nice to have that balance to help me to travel and help me to see a lot of the world and just experience different cultures. By actually living in these places, you get a completely different viewpoint from visiting a country for, say, a week, when you're actually trying to live and survive there.
Right.
So it's my career has allowed me to travel. Now my parents are in the UK; they're still there. My brother is still in the UK, and it's now about balancing, aging parents and helping my brother out with his family and my life in Utah. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to integrate that into my career. I think that, today, in today's world, we have a lot of different working structures, and work environments are becoming a lot more flexible. And work is becoming a lot more mobile. You can have your computer anywhere. You can be on a plane, at 30,000 feet and be answering emails. So that flexibility that modern technology has allowed us to still do our work as well as being in different places enables us as well to succeed in that work-life balance.
That is so fascinating, your life experience. What advice would you give to leaders who are trying to build their cultures to be more diverse and inclusive? You probably have some opinions on this because you've been able to see a lot of different ways of that either succeeding or not succeeding. And I'd love for you to share your advice for, particularly in our Silicon Slopes area, right? As we grow and continue to try to create this economy that's very robust, what would you advise these leaders?
I think that if you've got someone that's had a diverse background, they attract people with a diverse background, and they look for people with a diverse background. You know that saying, like likes like, you know? Whereas if you have someone that has always recruited from the same pool, and that's very much their circle, then that tends to perpetuate itself. I've looked at NUSKIN at the science team that I've built, and we've recruited people from very different backgrounds, and I haven't done that intentionally. It just seems to have been what we've attracted, and perhaps it's the skill set without intending to that we've looked for, because it just builds that overall community. So I think if you can look for places that have people that have lived in diverse backgrounds and that attract diverse people, those are places that you want to go for that diversity.
That's great, and it's great advice. And I think what people also find is that they don't have to. There's no lessening of talent, and in fact, it probably is. You probably increase the talent pool.
Well, in my opinion, you want to hear different people's points of view. You want to hear different points of view, and you're only going to get that if you've got people that come from all different walks of life. I mean, as a leader now of a team of 30 scientists, I want to hear what everybody's thinking, right from my direct reports all the way to the lab and to the technicians, because that makes I'm able to make a much more comprehensive and inclusive decision if I can get a full picture of the decisions and the impact of the decisions that I'm making. You need that information. Maybe it's because we're science-based, we want to see all the data. But I want a wide range of information that I can pull from in order for me to make the best decision to move an organization or a team forward.
I really like that way of thinking about it, because really, and for Women Tech Council, it's not about diversity for diversity's sake. We actually really believe in data-driven decisions, right, and performance-based decisions. And you just illustrated how diversity helps contribute to a data-driven decision-making process.
Yeah, and let me give you an example.
Great.
I create the time to meet with my entire team. And now the team's got a lot larger. I have sort of a lunch meeting, and we break them down into about 9 or 10 individuals, and we just chat about things. What are you enjoying? What don't you like? What would you change? And out of that team, we were talking about millennials and what millennials like, and how millennials see things differently. And we started to talk about skincare, and just an idea popped up is, we have millennials at NUSKIN. Why don't we leverage those guys to give us a point of view on what type of skincare products they might find interesting? And from that, we've developed a project team of millennials within NUSKIN that are meeting on a regular basis. So, this is somebody, the idea came from someone who I think hasn't even worked at NUSKIN for a year. And in fact, I think they're part-time doing some college courses as well. And we were just chatting, and they said, well, we're millennials. Why can't we be part of these decisions? And, I'm now in a place where I can make things happen at NUSKIN. And so I thought, that's a great idea. Can we make this happen? And it's been very rewarding because they're much more pulled into our overall strategic direction.
Well, not to mention product creation, revenue creation, customer, right? You have a strong customer base, and of course, I don't know what your demographics of your customer are, but for, if you were a little bit, lower on millennials, you've now just created an entire way to bring a new customer line in. I mean, all of this is so bottom line driven, right? It is all, it all reinforces the research, right? Diversity creates better profit, revenue,
correct,
operational,
correct,
efficiencies,
correct,
and just, it's such a great example.
Yeah, and science is quite broad in where you can go, because if you want to stay in the university, you can have an academic career, and that can be about being an individual contributor and really moving the science area forward. If you go into industry, you're looking at, maybe some sort of application of that science that, as you say, creates revenue and creates business for a corporation. So I like the fact that there's a lot of options available to someone who's considering a science degree, because you could remain as an individual contributor, just pushing a very small, very detailed area of science forward, or you can begin to think about how can I apply that and create products and be in a different in industry in a different field.
That's so many opportunities for these women in STEM. So, last question: what advice would you give to the women in STEM that are listening to this? As something that you've learned over your career that's really helped you, and love to have that kind of be a wrap up for you.
I think the thing that I've learned is that if you're really passionate about something, pursue it. Live that dream, because if you keep plugging away at it, even through the days when you think you're not making progress, through the days when people are telling you you can't do it, you just keep moving it forward, it pays off. And there will be days when you're not making progress, or your experiments don't work, or people are telling you can't do things. But that passion in you, I think that's the important thing. Choose something that you're passionate about because you just love what you're doing, and you'll find a way. And over 20, 30 years, it pays off and can be very rewarding and very fulfilling.
Well, thank you for sharing your journey. It is just so obvious how passionate you are about what you do.
Thank you.
I just appreciate your contributions also to science and to the development of the industry that you work in. So, again, this has been Dr. Knaggs, Dr. Helen Knaggs from NUSKIN, who's been on the show with us. And thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to share. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thanks for listening to the Women Tech Council Student Innovators Mentorship podcast series. Go to www.womentechcouncil.org for more info and subscribe to our iTunes channel for access to our ongoing series.